One of the most devastating consequences of mass incarceration and of mass criminalization in this country is the separation of families, the destruction of families. We saw time and time again that incarcerated parents were really at very severely disproportionate risk of losing their parental rights, even in cases where termination was not in the long-term best interest of the child.
There are too many families being broken, and not only are these families being broken, but talking from my personal experience with the system is very much broken.
Mothers and children are separated, and a lot of mothers don't know their parental rights, and I was one of them. I was one who lost her 2 daughters to the system. I was basically forced to give up my parental rights.
The overarching goal was to create a statute that really gave incarcerated parents and their children a more fair chance to stay together.
The Correctional Association of New York is a criminal justice policy advocacy organization based in New York City, and we focus on monitoring prison conditions in New York State, advocating to improve prison conditions, and advocating to reform the criminal justice system.
The United States incarcerates more people per capita than any other country in the world, and that means that we also incarcerate more parents per capita than any other country in the world. We're also talking about a mass impact on children. So in this country, there are over 8.3 million children who have a parent who's under some form of criminal justice supervision.
As we know, our prisons are made up primarily of people of color from low-income families. So that's what ASFA is impacting.
African American children are more than 7 times as likely to have an incarcerated parent as white children. Latino children are more than twice as likely.
Black parents are more likely to have their rights terminated, and those same children are less likely to be adopted. So at every stage, we are talking about a disproportionate impact on communities of color and their children and their families.
The Adoption Safe Families Act, or ASFA, is a federal statute that went into effect in 1997. The main principle of ASFA is permanency for children in foster care, that foster care is not a permanent situation.
So the Adoption and Safe Families Act was brought about really to keep children from lingering in foster care for a long time. There was a real concern that children were spending sometimes their entire childhood just lingering in foster care. So the initial plan and goals were good.
Now, one of the main ways that ASFA does that is by setting a general time limit. Subject to certain exceptions, children who have been in foster care for 15 out of the last 22 months are supposed to move towards termination of parental rights.
The median sentence for a woman in a New York State prison is 36 months, and ASFA's time frame gives someone about 15 months. Also, someone can be awaiting sentencing for over a year. So there goes 12 months.
It's just incredibly difficult to meet the mandates of the child welfare law if you're incarcerated, especially maintaining consistent and meaningful contact with your children. Also, finding a non-foster care home for your children is very difficult from prison. And then third, you just have tremendous stigma.
The Coalition for Women Prisoners is a statewide alliance made up of over 1,800 individuals and 100 organizations. It's formerly incarcerated women and men.
We all were seeing case after case that showed just how far astray the law had gotten from what its original goals were. And knowing that something in the statute needed to be changed. It was a terrific campaign. It was a campaign that was really led by people who were most directly affected. We had the support of the New York State Office of Children and Family Services, and ultimately they passed and was signed into law on June 15th, 2010.
The ASFA expanded discretion law is important for incarcerated parents for several reasons. First of all, visibility. It really builds into the statute the recognition that incarcerated parents have a very particular situation that needs to be taken into account. It also recognizes that a parent, even a parent who's serving a very long prison sentence, can continue to play that meaningful role in the child's life. Finally, what it does is it moves away from this rigid, one-size-fits-all, time-driven model of ASFA to create the necessary flexibility to allow child welfare welfare workers to make nuanced decisions about what really would best serve these families.
People like myself and other people fought hard to have this law put in effect. Like, no matter what you go through, those are your kids. Like, at the end of the day, those are all you have.
Just like we saw that there was a need to change the statute and to change the law, now that the law has been changed and it's on the books, we've seen a real need to actually make that law jump off the page and come to life. We are really hoping with this video to make sure that all of the players involved know that there's a law on the books that helps ensure that families separated by incarceration really have the fair chance that they need and the fair chance that they deserve to try to stay together, to try to stay whole.